I'm finally done. As many of you know, month-long art challenges are quite the journey, let's say. And it was a journey I was willing to hop on again recently. This time round, I wanted to try one of the more niche monthly art challenges. I keep calling them monthly. Anyway, one of the month-long art challenges called Cringetober. It's a monthly art challenge that's pretty much dedicated to embracing the things that the internet arbitrarily calls cringe, and so a lot of the prompts look like a lot of fun and an excuse to draw things from fandoms I like, and also my OCs. I presumed that because the prompts seemed easier on first glance, that this challenge would not be as exhausting as the previous two Inketobers that I've done. No. So let's look at that today. What did I do? I have nothing more to say, let's just jump into it. Prompt number 1. Screenshot redraw. I guess it's a bit of a disclaimer for all of these drawings, I guess. I planned all of them ahead of time. I looked at all of the prompts and I said, I know myself. I know that if I don't pre-plan specifically what I'm gonna do for every prompt, I'm gonna sit there and waste so much time just thinking of something. So I took up all the prompts, made a list, and I assigned subjects for each of the prompts and then did thumbnail sketches. There you go. I think one thing that most people do for this one is some sort of movie or TV situation, but I wanted to rep one of my favorite little things on the internet, Ina. I wanted to draw this particular little screenshot from the most recent Ina miniseries webisode, Power of Potluck. Ina is a series that I admire a lot for its total webcore, surreal, weirdcore type aesthetic. I love the character design. I come back and rewatch episodes when I want some references for how to even make goofy little designs, and so I had to give it some love for this prompt. I also got to play around a little more with that background style thing that I came up with last video. I think it's the last video about art style. And even though I did color pick for this one, because I didn't want to turn this into a background study and a color study, I still think this looks pretty accurate to the original thing. I think the smooth shading looks accurate. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with this one. We started out really strong. Second prompt was Tsundere. If I'm gonna be real, I don't indulge in a lot of media that has the Tsundere archetype in it. I've watched a couple different animes, but it's not a huge thing. That's my thing, I guess. So I had to literally Google like list of Tsunderes just to figure out what counts. And so amongst that long list, I came across Sailor Mars from Absolute Classic, Sailor Moon, which I have not seen. Add that to the pile of things that I always say that I'm going to watch, but then never do. And I'm like, the Sailor Scouts are iconic and they seem fun to draw, and when I was looking up references for Sailor Mars, I noticed that people draw her with some sort of fire powers, and so I'm like, I presume that's a canon thing, and I'll do that too, just to spice up the drawing, to do a little more than just a pose. And so I did that. And the fire effect, I think, ends up being my favorite part of this one. Just the shading, the fade from the yellows to the oranges, the shapes involved. Kind of my favorite part. I don't have much to say about, like, the pose or any of the rest of the drawing, but man, that's some good fire. Next prompt was oversized prop. When looking at this one, all I could think of was just oversized weapons. because they're pretty fun. They're a little silly goofy, if you will. And so when thinking of who or what to draw for this, my mind came to my favorite character from a game that you might have heard of, Persona 5. And that character being Haru Okumura. She's best girl. I love her. She's so cute. And I remembered how in a lot of combat animations, she can do these melee attacks. And the way it's animated just comes across as if the axe is kinda too heavy for her, but gosh darn it, she's gonna commit to that swing. And so I made the usual axe she has, a little bit bigger. Honestly, I could have exaggerated this one even more, especially since I had no clue what to do for the background, because you might have seen, I have no background for this one. I don't think it's super effective, this one. I think I could have really leaned way more into the cartooniness of this prompt. Oh well. Ugh. Now this prompt, Persona/Fursuit, scared me initially. Not because it's furry stuff. I could never hate y'all. But actually just because I don't draw anthropomorphic animals too often. However, I did have an immediate idea for what I wanted to do for this one. I wanted to turn my little YouTube persona into a little sheep girl, because I thought that would be cute. You might be able to tell that I sort of have a dream theme to my whole YouTube channel. Maybe you've been able to guess that a little bit. Sheep just seemed like a natural fit because the general fluffiness of a sheep matches the general cloud hair that my human-ish persona has. And there's already the phrase of counting sheep that's associated with dreams. Seemed like a natural fit. Pretty much all the rest I had to do was just translate the kind of more abstract parts of my persona into clothes. It worked pretty well. I think my little persona is really cute. Turn something into an animal. Now we're gonna do the opposite with Kuchinka. I could have done all sorts of things for this one, but I settled on MLP. And so I had to pick my girl, Fluttershy. This one was pretty straightforward as a design. Pretty much like every other art YouTuber has done their take on redesigning the Equestria Girls designs. And so here's another one for that pile. For this one, the choices for outfits and colors and Fluttershy's general style seemed pretty obvious. I just did what felt right. And so I kept her hair super long, I kept the wings just to keep that sort of fantasy element for funsies. I just tacked on a long skirt because she seems like a long skirt gal. I gave her a little turtleneck and some jewelry because she seems like that type of person. Flowers in her hair. Really easy. Cute. Now, next prompt is just unnatural eye color. Pretty open-ended. This ended up being one of my favorite ones that I made out of the whole month. I think because it's so simple. For this one, I actually could not think of an OC that has a very unnatural eye color off the top of my head. So I took two OCs that I wanted to draw. We got Kahali to the left and Arenda to the right. And I just took the color that they're super associated with since my OCs are so color-coded. And I took those colors and just had it be their eye color. And I thought it would make the eyes pop even more if I drew the rest of the drawing in like grayscale. And I think it works pretty well for what it is. I think it does really pop, and the subtle like shading on the both of them really works. And I just finished this one and was just surprised at how aesthetically pleasing it seemed to my eyeball. Now, by contrast, the next prompt, Crossover, was one that I thought would be a lot more interesting and good, and it kinda isn't. I did some OC crossover universe situation. And so the two OCs on the left are from an old webcomic project called Icarus. It's a sci-fi superhero story starring Shaylee, who's at the very far left, and Addie, who's next to her. They are sisters. It's cool, and I wanted to draw them again, since I do so rarely these days. And then to the right, we got OCs from my current little band. To the far right, we got Sophie, and then next to her is Isis. And I think the idea for how this interaction or group picture plays out was, I think, good, but I think in practice, it's not as interesting to look at as I think it could have been. I could have maybe zoomed in a little bit on the figures, I could have had them be more close together. Since the interaction's supposed to be that, like, Isis is super into fashion clothing, that's like her main hobby, and she's also kind of on like the quirkier edge. She kind of just gets really immediately interested in these clothes that are from this sci-fi universe, and she's kind of like not realizing that it's a very abrupt thing to do. Seemed like a natural group picture thing, but I feel like maybe I rushed this one. And also for like the background, I didn't mean to keep it mostly blank. I meant to come back to it, but as like 2 weeks passed after this, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna take the L. Oh well, next time. Next prompt is Dead Meme, and this is one of the 3 prompts, I think, that if you follow my webcomic, you got to see early. So, I didn't know what to do for this one. I don't even know if like this counts as a dead meme, but I just remember that there was this period of time where people would make like no homo jokes all the time, and that's just not a huge thing anymore. But I picked this one because I had this goofy idea of doing the same thing, but it's no hetero this time. This also just fits into the genre of webcomic scenarios that are currently in my head, because I don't get too many opportunities to put them in the comic yet, because the characters aren't super at that point in their relationship to do this yet, where it's just the character Ash and Baleb saying dumb stuff. Especially Baleb, because sometimes she alternates between saying very little and just saying crap. Just cause. That's what she does when she gets comfortable. So take it as a compliment, little man. So yeah, here's Baleb saying something stupid. Next prompt is childhood video game. This is another prompt that I could have done a bunch of different things, because I played a decent amount of video games as a kid. It's probably understating it. But I wanted to pick something that I actually wanted to draw, and so I picked one of my favorites, Super Mario Galaxy, mainly so that I could draw Rosalina. To me, one of the things that sets Super Mario Galaxy apart from the other mainline Marios, it's just this particular tone that it's got. It sort of embraces this sense of like vastness of space and almost loneliness. And one aspect that I think enhances that is the little library that you can go into where Rosalina will read a little story. It's a little part of the game. I always like, whenever I revisit the game, I always have to sit and listen to the story. And so for this one, I drew the little library, and I drew her reading the actual book from the game. This is like, I think, the prompt with the most ambitious background. I spent a decent amount of time on this one. Drawing all of those individual books is painful. I'll need to come up with some sort of hack to make that easier for myself. The background, some of it still looks like it's like smeared in like dirt or something, but I almost wonder if maybe I should not have said that, so that way you didn't notice. The fire in the background and the way it's lit looks pretty cool, so there's that. This one gets a thumbs up from me. So, prompt 10 is ship dynamic. For this one, I ended up drawing, who else? Ash and Baleb again. This will not be the last time. For this one, I looked up on Pinterest just OC ship ideas, and I found a handful of things that I think fit the bill pretty well. Save those for later, for future art projects. I was really close to doing this Beauty and the Beast type dynamic where Blab gets to be this cool, like, probably more dragon-like monster, because I don't know, that seems cool, but that seemed like it was getting especially convoluted, or that was becoming more work than probably what I had time for that day, especially since I started thinking about the mechanics of turning a Beauty and the Beast story into something platonic, which actually does fascinate me, the idea of taking the classical fairy tale notion of true love but giving this distinctly platonic edge to it. That would be fun to play around with another time though. The dialogue here that I've written for this prompt is pretty similar to something that would actually be said in the context of the webcomic. It's kind of out of context, but it's there. There's actually, speaking of text, there's just a lot on this image. It's a little cluttered that way, but it's fine. Editing note, I don't have actual footage of the speed paint. It looks like this because the speed paint settings for my usual comic size canvas on Procreate is really bad. It's bad quality. So here's just a showing off of the final image and some sketches. Next prompt is 5+1 things. This is a prompt I had to look up what it was. Thankfully, the creator of this prompt list made a video explaining what all of the prompts are. And so 5+1 is a fanfiction trope. This is one of many prompts that are supposed to be kind of mixed media. And so how the prompt goes is that a character does 5 things. Those first 5 times they do the thing, it plays out pretty much the same. And then the 6th time they go to do this thing and there's some sort of twist or change to it. I was way too tempted to turn this one into a comic because I'm a comic person, and so that's what I did. I decided to go with this idea of having Balab revisit this particular rooftop over and over and over again. Try to draw her so that she looks like she's progressively getting older over time, and the 6th time she's not alone, she's with Ash, and she looks considerably happier. And I think for what it is, it's pretty cute. This was the easy one. Just draw Hatsune Miku, the legend, such an icon. I was actually really excited to do this one since Miku's a character I'd been meaning to draw for a while, and so it was nice just to have the easy excuse to do that. This one I really wanted to emphasize the Miku hair, and so I put a lot of effort into making sure it was drawn and rendered in a very nice, clean way, and I think it works pretty well. This is actually one of my favorites, even though it's one of the ones that has technically the least going on. Simplicity is bliss, I guess. I like this one. Next prompt is Rule 63, parentheses, gender bend. This one gave me trouble to think of what I should do, and so I just settled on drawing a male version of my YouTube persona. So I figured that it'd be more fun if the male version has some unique features to his own. I gave him multiple arms instead of the separated ones. I also gave him this brass, very itchy looking turtleneck type situation going on. I probably would give this design another pass through or some more tweaks if this wasn't something to do in just a day, but it fulfills the prompt fine enough. Next prompt was incorrect quote, in which gotta do the OCs once again. When thinking of incorrect quote, my brain shifted into thinking about those, like, this series described as vines or blank characters as TikToks. I ended up just looking through a decent amount of TikTok comps that I saved on my phone and thinking which one of these would fit my OCs, and I don't know why this was the one I ended up picking. the idea I imagined in my head seemed so stupid, and when I laugh to myself and go, that's so stupid, I do it. And so I did. I translated this prompt into Bleb just being the one to summon and throw the lampshade, and just having Ash be there to just observe what is happening. This prompt I did manage to do all in one day, although I did do all of the sketches ahead of time so that I could wrap it up all in one day. When I put all of the images together in CapCut and slapped the audio on there, I laughed at my own joke. You might be able to tell. I crack myself up all the time. Unfortunately, that is a trait that I have. Case in point. So here's the final result of all of that. Lampshade. Also, this is one that I posted separately to my YouTube shorts. If you would like to watch this separately, that's an option. Why did I do this to myself? This one took ages, as you might be able to tell from the prompt. Procreate says 18 hours, but that's not including the time I spent thumbnailing, sketching, and compiling everything into video form. It ends up being more of an animatic than an animation meme, I think, but it's based off of a song that you might have seen on some other YouTube shorts called Human's Touch. I discovered it 2 months ago. I had this whole animatic idea for the whole song, but to save myself some sanity and to be realistic for this project, I kept it just at about what ends up being 20 seconds of footage. Yeah, I think this one turned out okay. I just finished this one, and so I don't have fresh eyes on it to know if it's actually good, but I think if I give it some time, I might be more appreciative of this one, but you can look it up on YouTube Shorts right now if you want to see it separately with the actual music that I can't play right now for copyright reasons. I definitely want to make animatics again, but if I do more, I definitely learned from this one to make the process faster for future. I think for next time I would simplify a lot of the panels, allow for more sketchiness or looseness, because I got really zoned in and every panel looking very nice and detailed, which is not great for something you look at for like a quarter of a second. Prompt 16 is something you've been bullied for. Honestly, I don't think as a kid or throughout my awkward teen years, I've ever been bullied for something specific. I think honestly I kept a lot of my hobbies and interests to myself so much because I was afraid of getting bullied. So I figured a better way to fulfill that prompt would maybe to riff off of that. And so I'm drawing myself in like some Sonic merch that I actually have. I picked this because I had this very particular experience in high school where I presumed that if I wore Sonic merch, like a t-shirt or whatever, that people would make fun of me for it. Not because Sonic might be perceived as like a thing kids are into, or like because it's video games. I thought I would get crap for it because I presumed that most teenagers my age knew about the weird reputation that Sonic fans can have. I would only realize until like a couple years later that's only something people that are very online in fandom spaces really know. So when I did wear my Sonic shirt eventually in high school, I just got compliments on it. As for the drawing itself, honestly, I don't like this one. The way the Chaos Emeralds are rendered looks really weird to me. Something just looked so weird about the skirt. I tried reshaping it and sketching it in differently, and because it's so dark, your eyes just look at it so much. It's the worst part of the drawing. It kind of stinks up this whole thing. Too bad. Prompt 17 was free to use base. I'm pretty sure the creator of the prompt list said that you could either use a base that you find online, or you can just make your own base. I kind of did both. I made a base from a pose that I sketched up earlier that day, and then I took the blank base and I drew Ash on top of it. I figured just to make the drawing a little bit more interesting, I figured I'd give him a fun little outfit. I literally typed in on Pinterest cute boy outfits, and I pretty much drew the first one that I saw that I liked. Prompt 18 is Fandom AU. Fandom AU is a pretty broad prompt, but it did give me an excuse to draw fan art of one of my favorite games, Fire Emblem Three Houses. I thought a modern AU would be the easiest since the game's a medieval fantasy type setting. I thought of this particular couple of characters from the game's DLC named Happy and Constance. I imagine that in a modern day setting they would have pretty contrasting fashion. I probably should explain who the characters are a little bit. Three Houses takes place in this monastery. These DLC characters are from an underground little mini city underneath the monastery, and so that's Happy and Constance. Both of them are pals, and both of them have like weird quirks to them that I think are magic related. Happy has this thing where when she sighs, monsters will just appear. And so as a result, she tends to be pretty apathetic all the time, because if she shows a lot of emotion, there's more risk of her sighing. And then Constance has this thing where when she is in the dark or is underground or it's cloudy outside, she acts very much like a snooty, rich anime girl type personality. But when she's in like sunlight, for some reason she gets really depressed. So for the drawings themselves, I thought it'd be fun to turn them into modern clothes. And I just had this vision of giving Happy, a little bit grungy, a little bit alt, because she already has an outfit in like the spin-off game that's pretty close to what I ended up drawing anyway. And then Constance, very frilly, kind of pastel colored dress, and a little parasol so that way she can be out in the sun. Speaking of alternative fashion, that is exactly what prompt 19 is. I drew one of my OCs, Phoenix, who already is pretty goth, and so this is a pretty easy one to do. The sketch for this one turned out really good, and so I really wanted to make sure that the line art did not let me down, and I'm pleased to report that the line art is line arting, ladies and gentlemen. The line art goes very hard, I think, especially in the hair. Ooh, do a little zoom in. Oh yeah, just the little coils and the curls. I think I did a good job. The little star thing in the back, I don't know how I feel about that one, per se. It's sort of but I'm so pleased with the line art. Like, ooh, it's good. Next prompt is Tumblr Sexy Woman. I am not as versed on what counts for this category as I am for Tumblr Sexy Man. Looked it up on Google, I guess, and I found this whole tournament that someone did on Tumblr just to see like what Tumblr considers like some of the main ones, because I wanted to pick a character that is from a fandom that I am a part of. And I saw that like Franziska von Karma counts, but I take those. I've only played the first two Ace Attorney games. I need to get back on at least finishing the original trilogy. Franziska was the character that really clicked with me. I won't get too detailed on what's happening in the drawing since it's kind of spoilery things if you've never played those games, which recommend. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about the way I drew the pose. I think I could have like tilted the canvas so that it's more at like a Dutch angle. I think I could have made the pose even more like stylized or exaggerated to really emphasize the motion. For what it is, I think it's fine. I feel like I keep saying that phrase a lot. Prompt 21 is closet cosplay. How you're supposed to do this prompt is that you're supposed to go into your closet and pick out clothes that you can turn into a cosplay. I do not want to show my face on the internet, and so I just drew what I have in my closet and the results of that. Last Christmas, I was given a whole Balab outfit by my mother. Thanks, Mom. I guess I'm cosplaying as one of my OCs. Is that weird? I don't know. It's Cringetober. This drawing in particular started a trend of me fiddling with clipping masks and layer settings. I'm not sure if this one in particular is the most effective. I don't know. Trigger warning, we have a needle in this one, and also just general medical and surgical imagery. If you need to skip this one, here's the time code. I'll give you a quick second to click away from this section if you need. Okay, let's go. So this prompt is Candy Gore number 22. For this one, I actually thought going for something more medical would be a fun idea. And so when thinking of like what fictional characters from media that I like that I could do this for, I thought of one of my favorite characters from the Danganronpa series, which is Mikan. She's my daughter. I need to adopt her and get her away from the narrative, please. So I have drawn her, done a little operation-esque surgery, which I think was an idea that came later in the process, but I'm glad I went in that direction. There's some candy substitutes for certain body parts. I'm not sure if this really counts as candy gore. We've got the bright colors, some little splashes of the pink blood, which is also classic Danganronpa blood. Come to think of it, I think the idea of drawing Mikan in a candy gore context has probably been done before, but I want to do my own take, I guess. I do like the little spirals I drew in her eyes, and I do like the little green, what is this, like rim lighting highlights that I drew in the hair that seems to be reflecting like the green in the background. This one's fun. It also reminds me of like a YouTube thumbnail for some reason. Maybe that's just because of the ratio. Prompt 23 is adult cartoon, which I don't watch too many of those, but I do watch Arcane, which ended up being pretty appropriate because the second season I think just dropped. I still need to watch it. Pretty excited for that. For this one I decided to draw Jinx, just because her design seemed really fun to draw, and it was. The braids were fun, the little cloud tattoos are cool, and I actually don't mind drawing something super mechanical like her weapon, so I learned new things about my art preferences, I guess, with this one. This one I also did some clipping mask stuff. I think out of all of the drawings where I fiddled around with those type of settings, this one worked out the best. I used a blue or purple color to do the shadows, which I think works pretty well, and I like the clouds in the background, where the background itself isn't too crazy, but I like it for what it is. Pretty alright, this one. Prompt 24 is niche interest, and this one gave me trouble. It took me so long. I procrastinated on this one until 9 p.m, in which I had to make some tough calls. So for this one, my niche interest is the playable teaser for the supposed next Silent Hill game, PT. It's a very strange phenomenon of a game, it being created in secret, only to be released under a fake studio name, and it became kind of this collective ARG puzzle. It's also just in itself very freaky. I first discovered PT in 2019, a whole 5 years later, and it absolutely scared the wits out of me. I'm meaning to draw PT fan art for Halloween one of these days. I also meant for this one to draw the ghost Lisa when I was in the sketching phase, figure out how to put her in the scene in a way that looked right. Again, because it was super late at night, I had to make the tough call of just drawing the hallway in itself. It stinks that I couldn't do what I fully imagined in my head, but honestly, this just looks like a pretty good background study. Prompt 25 is technically Gacha Life. I just personally didn't feel like downloading a program just to probably use it once, and so I tweaked the prompt into doing something kinda similar. This might be something that not a lot of people remember, but there was this period like 6 years ago where people were doing this thing called the Pastel Girl Challenge. Basically, you downloaded this particular dress-up app. People would make a cute little girl on there, and then they would do a speed paint or a drawing and post it somewhere. I don't know if anyone else remembers this being a thing. I figured that had a similar energy. I made a couple cute little characters. I did recreate my OCs using the app. What do you take me for? But I also made these two little cute ones, and the two OCs side by side kind of look like a magical girl and like a civilian character and like a very cutesy sort of show. And so that's kind of the scenario we're seeing here. I included the little unicorn from the second girl's reference as like her little animal companion. And I think with this one, the shading looks really cute. For some reason, I think my favorite part is how the unicorn turned out, which was I was not expecting that. I was expecting this horse to look really goofy. But something about the mane especially, just like, it looks nice. Prompt after that is YN/Mary Sue 26, which conveniently, in my very first video, I made an OC pretty much based off of that idea. And so that design's really fun and cute and colorful, and so I was pretty excited to draw it again. So if you're unaware, this is Crystal with 2 L's, that's really important. I figured in order to enhance her special protagonist-ness, it would be fun to just draw her in like a line with other boring high schoolers in boring high school clothes. The only thing I can really note is that she looks a tad off-model or different than the initial drawing I had in my other video, but I don't know, still a cute little design. Prompt 27 is YouTuber fan art. And so for this one, I drew a YouTuber that I've been following for a while called Nisi Pisa. She makes fashion and makeup related videos. She's mainly known for her window shopping series where she scrolls through various fashion websites and then roasts whatever clothes that are on there. But some of my favorite videos are when she's just talking to you about random stuff. I think my favorite video of hers is her earring collection one, because as someone who also has quirky little earrings, I appreciate it on a, what did I say, spiritual level, and so I wanted to draw her. Fun fact, the earrings and the dress are an outfit from another video she has where she's talking about how good she is at thrifting. She's correct. I'm really jealous of that dress. But yeah, I kept this very Barbie core. Oh, also, the phrase, "it's not that serious," is a phrase that's just generally a part of her branding, I guess, on all of her social medias, and so I felt like I really wanted to incorporate that somehow. So if you're curious on what that means, there's your backstory. Prompt after that is number 28, Mascot Horror. Even though I like horror, especially horror video games, I'm not a huge mascot horror person, or the idea of drawing fan art of all of the usual culprits did not excite me too much, and so I googled what even counts, just to see if there's something that I'm forgetting. And I saw more than a couple of lists count a little indie title called Spooky's House of Jump Scares, and I'm like, oh, I like that game, and even though I wouldn't personally consider it a mascot horror, we take these, and it's an excuse to draw something that is cool and that I like. And so Spooky's House has a lot of really cool creatures to draw, but I settled on this one from the endless mode version of the game, and this one is the evolved version of the 4th specimen in the base game, Ringu. I just thought drawing multiple arms would be fun. For this one, the background I also pulled directly from what the backgrounds and the style looks like in the game. The static effect that this creature has when it's chasing you was something that I was really worried about doing, and so I kind of just ripped the texture from the game and put it in the background. Yeah, This one, when I first finished it, I wasn't super sure how I felt about it, but then when I was looking at it subsequent days, I actually really like this one. This one hits. It's actually one of my favorites. Unfortunately, we jump from one of my favorites to one of my least favorites with Prompt 29, Experimental Makeup. I think with this one you're supposed to do actual makeup and show off the results, but again, I don't want to show my face, and so I'll draw a character doing experimental makeup. I have an old OC named Tara, who's an angel OC. I thought it would be funny to do experimental makeup based off of the biblically accurate angels, which when people say that, they literally just mean this particular type of angel. It seemed like a funny idea, but in execution, I'm not sure how much it works. I think the colors just do not mesh with each other, and I think the shading is too detailed or too smooth, or it's not really showing the actual 3D-ness of the face like it should. Yeah, this one just looks kind of garish to me. Fortunately, we jump back into something good for Prompt 30, which is Supernatural / Monster. This one was great because I got to use a sketch that I drew like 5-6 months ago that I meant to turn into a standalone illustration. It just lined up pretty well with this prompt. This one is of the webcomic OCs again, and for this one I'm playing around with the concept of the Bloody Mary, sort of symbolic of ideas that are in the webcomic, with this idea that Blab represents this webcomic story concept of lucids, which are a group of people that tend to get pretty stigmatized and can be feared a lot of the times. And Ash is someone who is not a lucid, but sort of has to call upon the help of someone with knowledge that a lucid would have for his own reasons. I guess one thing I will say is that in the particular area Ash lives, I think it's a very weird or taboo idea to go approach a lucid for help in the way that he does in the webcomic story, and so hence Bloody Mary. As for the art itself, the main thing I'm proud of is just the lighting effect I did with the candles. I think it's an effect that works, although I don't know, I did not use a reference, but looks good to me. And finally, the last prompt, 31, Halloween! Oh man, this prompt easily took the longest out of any of the prompts. It took all day, even though I did the whole sketch ahead of time, and I designed all the outfits ahead of time. Whew! So this one, I thought it'd be fun to end on a nice little group picture with all of the OCs that are either in the webcomic or should be at some point. And the inspiration for this one was a Halloween town AU, I suppose. It came to me in a dream, actually. I had a dream about a couple of my OCs moving into a house, and it's a Halloween town. There are two humans in a town where their neighbors are all mostly actually pretty chill little monsters and creatures. And so I ran with that. I paired Ash and Sophie as the humans in this scenario because I thought it was a funny contrast. Sophie's a pretty feminine girly, but she's also very into horror, and so she's pretty ecstatic when they realize where they have moved in, whereas Ash absolutely is totally afraid of anything to do with horror, and so I thought that was funny. And then all of my other gooby guys have turned into creatures. Left to right. We got Phoenix, who's a vampire. Seemed like a fitting choice. It's too bad that in the final image I put this lighting effect, and so you can't see the beautiful hair that I've drawn, but at least you see it in this speed paint. And then we got Blab, who is this like shape-shifting doppelganger, like Mandela Catalog alternate-esque creature. Probably the only one out of the 5 that could be genuinely unsettling. And then we got Orenda, who Because the character is based off of a particular Native American culture, I thought it'd be fun to do a creature that is from that mythology. So she's based off of the Ong, which is a creature that's got a human face and a bird body. And so I think it's like a Monster High situation where she's just the daughter of this particular creature. And then after her, we've got Kahali, who's based off of the Naga, which is a snake person in Indian folklore, I think especially Hindu folklore. And then finally Isis, because her name is already based off of an Egyptian goddess, making her a mummy seemed appropriate. And so yeah, that's all of them. And then I also dressed up my 2 human characters in actual Halloween costumes. Ash is sort of a night character, and then Sophie is Daphne, because it's vaguely spooky and cute, and that seemed like a costume she'd pick. Yeah, oh my goodness. That's the last one. Man, I was not expecting this challenge to eat up as much of my time in October, so that's something I might have to keep in mind for next time. But I feel like with this challenge, I got to draw a lot of different things that I otherwise wouldn't have. I think I picked up on some cool techniques that I will want to use for further illustrating, and it's just fun to actually draw a lot of different subjects, and especially fan art of stuff that I don't get to draw often. I did not have a motivation issue with this challenge. I think it helped to really plan ahead for this, so that way I didn't get super overwhelmed. I'm honestly glad that it's over though, because it gives me a little bit more extra time to do something different. So yeah, as always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and sleep well. Bye bye!